Welcome to Deep Dive, and we have a major piece of information to unpack today regarding U.S. immigration. Specifically, we are diving into something pretty significant: the anticipated reopening of the U.S. employment-based, the EB green card categories. We're talking EB-1, EB-2, EB-3, and EB-5. That's set for October 1, 2025. Now, this date, October 1st, it often sounds like a fresh start, doesn't it? But, well, when we look closer, the reality seems quite different. There's this gap between the administrative process and what applicants actually experience.
That gap, that tension, is exactly why this is so important to discuss. October 1st, it's really just procedural. It marks the start of the new fiscal year, FY 2026.
Yeah.
So the annual quota for employment visas, that's about 140,000 per year right now, it just resets. The count starts over.
Yeah.
So anyone who was, let's say, locked out because the caps got hit in fiscal year 2025, well, now they technically have the chance to register. But like you said, that chance, it's often just symbolic because of these, frankly, crushing backlogs.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our mission today is really twofold. First, clarify which administrative doors are actually opening on October 1st. But more importantly, analyze what this administrative reset really means for the applicants waiting, right? For U.S. employers trying to hire globally. And for policy watchers. Because the core thing here, I think, the thing we have to come back to, is that this annual reset, it's almost neutralized by these waiting lists that stretch back years, sometimes decades.
Right, so let's start with the basics, maybe for listeners who are newer to this. The employment-based system is divided into these main categories, these preferences. And October 1st reopens registration for the big ones. You've got EB-1, that's kind of the top tier, isn't it? Reserved for people with extraordinary ability, outstanding professors, researchers, certain multinational executives. Then EB-2, that's for professionals, usually with advanced degrees or people with exceptional ability in fields like arts, sciences, business.
Exactly. And then you get EB-3. This is where things get even more nuanced. EB-3 is broader. It covers skilled workers, those needing at least 2 years experience, general professionals, and even a small slice for other workers. And the difference, between showing exceptional ability for EB-2 versus just being a skilled worker for EB-3, well, on paper it might seem small, but in terms of waiting time, years of difference. And finally, EB-5. That's the investor visa. Requires a pretty substantial investment in a U.S. business, one that creates jobs.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how the system mechanics work, or maybe how they don't quite work together. A lot of people hear October 1st, categories reopen, and they might think, okay, the line disappears. But you mentioned the backlog. Can you maybe give us an analogy, help our audience grasp the difference between this annual cap reset and the priority date reality?
Sure, absolutely. Think of it like this. The 140,000 annual cap is like the total number of seats on a giant airplane scheduled to leave once a year. October 1st is when the airline, let's say, opens ticket sales or registration for next year's flight. You can buy a ticket. However, your priority date, that's your boarding group number, it was assigned when you first got in line. So you can file your registration on October 1st, you get your ticket. But if your boarding group, your priority date hasn't been called yet, meaning if the State Department hasn't reached your specific date in their monthly visa bulletin, you're just stuck at the gate, waiting. And for many people, especially from high-demand countries like India, their boarding group number was assigned, well, over 10 years ago. And they're still waiting for that boarding call.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. And yeah, frankly, quite heartbreaking. Even with registration open, applicants have to be glued to their priority dates. Let's look at the data for India, because it's just the most extreme example of this administrative fiction, isn't it?
Oh, the reality check is brutal. Absolutely brutal. For Indian nationals, look at EB-3. The final action date, the date that needs to be current for final processing, is stuck. May 22, 2013. Just think about that.
Yeah.
We're talking about people who started this green card process when, the iPhone 5 was the new thing. Only people with a priority date before May 22, 2013 can actually get the green card processed right now in that category, regardless of the October 1st reset.
12 and a half years. Just let that sink in. 12 and a half years waiting just for the chance to finish the application. That's a significant chunk of a career, of a life. But it's not just EB-3, is it? The EB-1 data also stands out to me, because EB-1, now that's supposed to be the fast lane, right? The extraordinary track. Yet for India, the final action date in EB-1 is February 15th, 2022. Now, okay, that's way better than 2013, but still, nearly a 3-year wait for the so-called extraordinary category. It suggests either massive demand or that the cap itself is just totally inadequate, even for the top tier of applicants.
It's really a combination of both. But the main driver, it's the per-country limit. The law says no single country can get more than 7% of the total visas in a category each year. Doesn't matter how many qualified people apply from that country. So countries like India, China, they produce a huge number of qualified applicants. They hit that 7% ceiling almost instantly. That forces them into these incredibly long queues. So when you see even EB-1 stalling for years for India, it tells you the demand among the very highest skilled is just vastly outstripping that small 7% slice of the pie.
And connecting this to the wider picture, you mentioned one category is seeing some movement. That's EB-5, the investor visa. We saw final action dates there creep forward a bit, maybe a few months as of August 2025.
Yes, that's a really key point. That slight movement in EB-5, it could signal a few things. Maybe recent changes to the program are working, stabilizing things, maybe reducing fraud concerns, which could speed up processing. Or perhaps there's let's say, a policy inclination to prioritize capital investment coming into the U.S. Maybe processing those cases gets a bit more attention. Either way, for the huge majority of skilled workers stuck in EB-2 and EB-3, especially from India, the monthly visa bulletin, that's their lifeline. That's the document everyone has to watch like a hawk. It gives those critical cutoff dates.
So, okay, if the dates are that grim, May 2013 for EB-3 India, what does this October 1st reopening really mean for, say, a U.S. company trying to hire top global talent today? Let's shift to the strategic consequences. Why should applicants pay attention to this procedural date if the real wait times aren't changing much?
Well, for the immigrants, the applicants themselves, the message has to be about preparation, proactive preparation. Because lots of people will rush to register or file petitions around October 1st. So you need your documents ready now. We're talking certified degrees, detailed letters outlining work history, proof of funds if it's EB-5. Getting everything lined up avoids delays later. And crucially, for someone on an H-1B visa, understanding how filing the green card petition impacts their H-1B status is vital. Specifically, if you're on an H-1B and your priority date is, years away, filing that EB-2 or EB-3 petition, getting it approved, can be the key. It can trigger rules allowing you to extend your H-1B status beyond the usual 6-year limit. You can keep extending maybe 1 year or 3 years at a time until your priority date finally becomes current. So filing promptly after October 1st isn't about getting the green card tomorrow. It's often about maintaining your legal ability to stay and work while you wait. Preparation is absolutely key.
Right, and that leads directly to the employers, the recruiters. This annual cycle means they need to look hard at their talent strategies. It's not just about sponsoring an H-1B and filing the green card papers anymore. You have to actively manage the expectation of potentially a 12-year wait for some employees. That's huge. For companies hiring heavily from places like India, relying solely on relocating someone to the US right away, that strategy seems broken, doesn't it? So smart companies, they're looking at hybrid models now, maybe structuring rules so the person can work remotely or offshore for a period. Let them file the green card application, lock in that priority date. But plan for them to work outside the US for maybe several years, only bringing them over when it's absolutely necessary, or ideally when that priority date gets much closer.
Absolutely. And employers should also think strategically about which EB category to file under. EB-2 often seems better than EB-3. But if someone qualifies for both, some companies might file petitions in both categories concurrently if possible. Or they might even downgrade an approved EB-2 petition to EB-3 later if somehow the EB-3 date were to move faster for their country. Having that kind of flexibility, that optionality, is a real asset when you're navigating such a logjam.
And looking at the bigger picture, what does this whole cycle, this October 1st dance, tell policy watchers about the immigration system itself? It feels like this administrative reset just throws the underlying problem into sharp relief, right? That 140,000 annual cap set ages ago seems completely out of sync with today's global talent realities.
It really does. And it raises big questions about resource allocation within the government too. USCIS and the State Department are still wrestling with massive visa backlogs and carryovers from previous years. Remember during the pandemic when family visa numbers went unused, they got added to the employment pool. That provided a temporary boost, sure, but the system absorbed those extra numbers incredibly quickly. So this October 1st reopening, it doesn't magically clear those decks. It just resets the counter for the standard 140,000 slots for FY 2026. Those slots will likely get eaten up very fast by people already waiting. The pressure on the system for the coming years, it remains immense.
So what does this all mean? Let's try to sum it up. The October 1st date, it signals the annual procedural reset. It allows new registrations, new filings for EB-1, EB-2, EB-3, and EB-5 green cards. That part is true. However, the massive backlogs, especially for countries like India, they don't disappear, they persist. This means applicants need a laser focus on their priority dates and absolutely need proactive documentation preparation. And for employers, it demands long-term, cross-border strategic planning to manage what could be a multi-year, even decade-plus wait for key talent.
And this raises an important question. While we could see legislative changes, maybe, or shifts under different administrations that might alter how visas are allocated down the road. That's always possible. But the immediate reality right now for literally hundreds of thousands of skilled workers and their families is that their wait time is still dictated by a date set, in some cases more than 12 years ago. It makes October 1st feel less like a starting gun and more like just another day to check the visa bulletin and file more paperwork, not pack suitcases. All the best.
And we will meet again with another important matter again.